The receding glaciers from the last ice age left fertile soils and an abundance of fresh water in southwestern Ontario. The moderate temperatures and long growing season have earned it the nickname of the Banana Belt of Canada. The area supports field crops, dairy farms and other animal husbandry, as well as vineyards, orchards, and the largest concentration of greenhouses in North America. The family farm has been an institution since the first settlers began to clear the land in the 18th century. While there was always some financial risks and hardships, generally farming has provided a good living as well as personal fulfillment.
Sometimes when it got hectic, you didn't enjoy it.
No.
You endured it.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, it was a good livelihood. I would, if I was in that position again, I'd probably farm because it's a good, healthy life, ordinarily, and your kids have the freedom to run. I don't know. To me, it was perfect. I couldn't think of anything I would do in place of it. But at times, I grumbled just as loud as anybody because it was hard work.
It was a wonderful life as a child growing up, and I was born in '58, so it was really the 60s and 70s that I spent my years on the farm.
Yes, my uncle always used to say if he won the lottery and he had $1 million, he'd keep on farming until it was all gone, I'm sure.
The most amazing thing out here in the rural environment is the eternal optimism, how that guy can get up in the next spring and plant that crop again after he's just gone through a year like this last one where these guys have lost an average of $50 to $150 an acre in grain seed production out here. How they can get back in the next spring and do it all over again with no hope, or maybe not, I guess they've always got hope. They've got this eternal optimism. Farmers are just got an amazing amount of resilience to go back out there and do it all over again. If you ask some other worker to go out in industry and let's take a chance and work for a year, maybe we'll pay you and maybe we won't, it's pretty hard to imagine. Okay. And these guys have got their whole lives and their whole total investment is there. And so they just take a tremendous gamble every year.
There is growing evidence that farming may not be as financially rewarding or as healthy as we might imagine. Economic pressures are forcing more and more families out of the business of farming. And while the farming lifestyle seems to be generally health enhancing, it seems that farming may actually increase the risk for some diseases. 2 back-to-back studies carried out in Essex County found increased risks for breast cancer among women who had ever farmed. And there is growing scientific evidence that farmers are at a greater risk for developing asthma, reproductive problems, skin and prostate cancers, and lymphoma. Some members of the farming community are concerned about what they perceive to be a growing number of cancers in their neighborhoods.
When I look at the people in this particular area, there's been an awful lot of cancer showing up in this part of the world.
I think they have a very high rate of cancer, but I guess that's just because you're sensitive to your own community, and it seems like every time you turn around, you're hearing that somebody is having some problems in one way, shape, or form. You know, it's hit home, I think, for a lot of people. How that compares to, is that because in a larger city you don't know as many people?
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
Farm where I grew up, that's Don Township and Lambton County, and in that area, I guess, I don't know particular people, but there are a lot of cancer.
As far as hearing a lot about cancer, oh yeah, it seems like you're always hearing it. Like when I was going through treatment myself, there was a girl that I golfed with who started at treatment at the same time as myself, and a girl about 2 blocks down the road. All 3 of us were all young women, under 50, going through breast cancer, and I said to my husband, what the heck is going on here? And he said, I don't know. Yeah, you just seem like you're hearing it all the time, and I asked my mother if she was used to hear those things, and she said no, like it just didn't seem to be the case when she was my age. I don't know whether she just didn't know those women, but it just seems like it's a lot higher.
Almost everyone on the 11th concession had been affected by cancer in some way, and that was pretty much all women who were affected by cancer.
Are farming practices in some way contributing to farmers' health problems? and what can be done to protect the lives and the livelihoods of the family farmers. We asked farmers and rural residents to lead us through an exploration of the business of farming today and of the changes that have taken place over the past century. They told us that the two biggest changes, which occurred just after the Second World War, were mechanization and the introduction of agricultural chemicals. Before tractors, combines, milking machines, and other farm machinery were widely adopted, farming was extremely labor-intensive. But while mechanization generally increased the yield, it was an expensive change.
It was horses when I was growing up, but we had a tractor. I'm talking after the war in '46.
Probably the biggest change was in the post-war periods when they went from so much of them dependence on horses to mechanical means and that type of stuff, and the farms were able to adapt and farm more quicker during the appropriate times.
I know at the time when we bought the tractor, the man that's owning the tractor told him he could have bought the farm on the road behind us for the same price.
The other significant change in farming practices came with the introduction of a wide range of agricultural chemical products: chemical fertilizers, herbicides, fungicides, and insecticides. They were seen as both labor-saving and as a boon to production.
I can remember when that corn war first started. I was just a little guy. And when it first started, we cut our corn and took the fodder and all in to feed. And they had to go out when it turned cold, on a cold day, and they'd take a railroad iron and pull it and break all them stalks off. And they had to rake them all up and burn them. And there was an inspector come around and checked that made sure you burn them all.
The way of controlling the weeds in the old days was to manually hoe them. Every farmer, their kids were out there hoeing, and that was pretty well a full-time job. It takes, well, you 30 acres. It takes a long time to hoe 30 acres, one chop at a time. And then came the introduction of the pesticide.
That's why people turn to chemicals, because it's brutally hard work farming if you don't have the chemicals, you know what I mean?
We used all the chemicals that were going at the time, which included many different kinds, and DDT, which was supposed to have been, we had a bug that got into the peaches. It was called the oriental fruit moth, and there was no way we didn't have any chemical that was, or any pesticide that would seem to touch it. And they come up with DDT, which everybody, if you know anything about it, DDT, it was one of the worst chemicals we had. And I sprayed for 2 or 3 years, but there was a man worked at Harrow Research, used to come into the orchards, and I can't think of his name now. He said, "You be careful of this spraying with this DDT."
There was little information available in the early days about the potential health hazards of exposure to agricultural chemicals, and this was reflected in farming practices.